On October 7th, 1972, at 10:14 a.m., a pair of brown leather shoes was following a woman through a market in Rome. The shoes were scuffed at the toe. The sole was rubber. The size was approximately European 43. The laces were tied with a double knot, the kind of knot a person ties when they expect to be on their feet for a long time and do not want to stop to retie. The shoes had been following the woman for 14 minutes. They had not stopped at a single stall. They had not looked at a single tomato or a single lemon or a single artichoke or a single wheel of pecorino wrapped in wax paper and sitting in a wooden crate in the October sun. The shoes had looked at one thing for 14 consecutive minutes: the back of a woman's legs, the rhythm of her sandals on the cobblestone, the way her tan linen skirt moved when she turned her body to examine something on a vendor's table. The shoes were not shopping. The shoes were hunting. The woman did not know she was being hunted. She was buying mozzarella. She was smelling basil. She was speaking to an old man who sold artichokes from a wooden crate and who called her by a name that was not her real name, but a name the whole country had given her, because her real name belonged to a girl from Pozzuoli, and the name the country gave her belonged to a woman who had won an Academy Award and whose face was on magazine covers in 40 countries, and who could not walk through a market in her own city without being recognized even when she wore sunglasses that covered half her face. The sunglasses were large, tortoiseshell frame. They were her disguise. They had never worked. Sophia Loren in sunglasses was like a cathedral behind a curtain. The shape gave it away. 6 feet to the left of the brown shoes, standing at a fruit stall operated by a man whose hands were permanently stained orange from 40 years of handling citrus. Another pair of shoes was watching. These shoes were black, flat-soled, rubber, 3/16 of an inch thick. They made no sound on any surface their owner had walked on that morning, not on the marble floor of the hotel lobby, not on the asphalt of Via da Coronari, not on the cobblestones of Campo dei Fiori, not on the packed dirt beneath the canvas awning of the fruit stall, where their owner was currently standing with 3 blood oranges in his left hand and a handful of Italian lire in his right. The owner of the black shoes was 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds, approximately 4% body fat. His forearms measured 11.5 inches in circumference, and his resting heart rate that morning, taken at 7:15 a.m. by placing 2 fingers on his radial artery for 15 seconds and multiplying by 4, was 54 beats per minute. His name was Bruce Lee. He was 31 years old. He was in Rome for 2 days. He had come to this market because he wanted blood oranges. He selected them by weight, by color, and by the sound the skin made when pressed with a thumb. A ripe blood orange produces a faint give, followed by immediate resistance, approximately 2 millimeters of compression before the rind pushes back. He found this process calming. He had been calm when he arrived at the stall. He was calm now, but the nature of his calm had changed in the last 40 seconds, the way the surface of a lake is calm before and after a stone enters it. Both states are calm. Only one contains ripples. 40 seconds ago, Bruce Lee had noticed the brown shoes. He had not noticed the man wearing the brown shoes. He had noticed the shoes themselves, because Bruce Lee had been trained since the age of 13 to observe feet before faces. In Wing Chun, the martial art he studied under IP Man in Hong Kong from 1954 to 1958, the feet are considered more honest than the face. The face is controlled by the cerebral cortex, the part of the brain responsible for conscious decision-making. A person can decide to smile. A person can decide to appear relaxed, decide to project calm while their heart rate exceeds 100 beats per minute, and their adrenal glands are dumping cortisol into their bloodstream at a rate that would be visible on a blood test, but is invisible on a face that has practiced lying. The feet cannot practice lying. The feet are controlled by the cerebellum and the spinal cord, the parts of the nervous system responsible for balance, coordination, and reflexive movement. A person can decide to keep their face neutral. A person cannot decide to keep their feet from pointing in the direction they intend to move. A person cannot prevent their weight from shifting to the balls of their feet when their body is preparing to accelerate. A person cannot stop their stride from mirroring the stride of a person they are tracking, because stride mirroring is a function of the cerebellum's predictive timing system, which synchronizes the tracker's footfalls with the target's footfalls, so that the sound of 2 sets of feet becomes indistinguishable from the sound of one, which is the reason that a woman being followed through a market hears nothing unusual behind her. Bruce Lee read all of this in 40 seconds. He read it the way a native speaker reads a sentence, not by analyzing each word, but by absorbing the whole structure at once and extracting meaning from the pattern. The pattern said this: the brown shoes had a stride length of approximately 28 inches. Sophia Loren's stride length was approximately 26 inches. The difference was 2 inches, which the man compensated for by taking slightly shorter steps, compressing his natural gait by approximately 7%. This compression was invisible to anyone watching casually. It was not invisible to a man who had spent 18 years studying the micromechanics of human movement for the specific purpose of predicting what a body would do 0.2 seconds before it did it. The pattern said this: when Sophia stopped at a stall, the man stopped approximately 1.1 seconds later. A person walking at their own pace stops when they choose to stop. Their deceleration begins approximately 0.3 seconds before the final step, because the decision to stop and the execution of the stop occur in the same brain at the same time. This man's deceleration began 0.8 seconds after Sophia's final step, which meant his stop was reactive, not self-initiated. He was not walking, he was following. The pattern said this: the distance between the man and Sophia had been 12 feet for the last 4 minutes. Before that, it had been 15 feet for 5 minutes. Before that, 20 feet for 5 minutes. The distance was shrinking, not randomly, systematically. The man had closed 8 feet in 14 minutes, which is a rate of approximately 0.57 feet per minute, which means he would reach touching distance in approximately 21 more minutes if the rate held constant. But the rate would not hold constant. The rate never holds constant. The closer a predator gets to a target, the faster the final approach, because proximity creates its own momentum. The distance would hold at 12 feet for another 5 to 8 minutes. Then it would jump to 8, then 5, then 3, then 0. 0 was the number Bruce Lee was calculating toward. 0 was the number he intended to prevent. The pattern said this: the man's weight was on the balls of his feet. This is not how a person stands when they are browsing a market. A person browsing a market distributes weight evenly, or slightly to the heels, because browsing does not require forward readiness. Weight on the balls of the feet means the body is prepared to accelerate. The man's quadriceps were in a state of partial engagement, approximately 15 to 20% of maximum contraction, enough to launch a forward stride of 3 feet in approximately 0.3 seconds. He was not browsing, he was loaded. The way a spring is loaded, the way a fist is loaded before a punch. The energy was stored and the feet were aimed, and the only question was when. The pattern said this: the man's feet had not rotated toward a single stall in 14 minutes. In a market, a person who is shopping rotates their feet toward items of interest, because the feet point where the attention goes. This is called foot orientation, and it is one of the most reliable indicators of intention in the study of human body language. A person whose feet point at a cheese stall is interested in cheese. A person whose feet point at an exit is interested in leaving. A person whose feet have pointed at the back of one woman's legs for 14 consecutive minutes, in a market containing 250 people and 50 stalls and 1,000 items for sale, is not interested in anything the market is selling. He is interested in one item, and the item is not for sale. Bruce Lee paid for the oranges. He handed Giuseppe the coins. Giuseppe counted them, nodded, and said something in Italian that Bruce did not understand, but whose tone communicated the universal vendor's farewell, a combination of gratitude and invitation to return. Bruce placed 2 oranges in his left trouser pocket. He held the third in his left hand. His right hand was empty. His right hand was always empty. The right hand is the hand that acts when the left hand is occupied. A man who carries fruit in his striking hand is a man who is not paying attention. Bruce Lee was always paying attention. He turned his body 90 degrees to face the row of stalls where Sophia was walking. He began walking parallel to her path, 1 row of stalls to the left, separated from the man by approximately 15 feet, and 2 canvas awnings, and a stack of wooden crates filled with zucchini. He adjusted his pace to match the man's pace, which was matching Sophia's pace, so that all 3 of them moved through the market at the same speed in the same direction. A triangle of motion with Sophia at the front, the man 12 feet behind her, and Bruce Lee 15 feet to the man's left and slightly behind. Invisible to the man because the man's feet had not rotated in any direction except forward for 14 minutes. And because a person who is tracking a target enters a state of perceptual narrowing in which the peripheral visual field contracts by approximately 30%, which means the man could not see Bruce Lee even if he turned his head. because Bruce Lee was positioned in the exact zone of his visual field that his brain had decided was irrelevant. Bruce timed his approach to arrive at the end of the stall row at the same moment the man arrived at the end of his row. This required 3 speed adjustments over 45 seconds. He slowed when the man slowed behind Sophia at a spice stall, a vendor selling dried oregano, saffron threads at 12,000 lire per gram, and red pepper flakes in glass jars. He accelerated when the man accelerated past a flower vendor whose buckets of long-stem roses created a bottleneck that forced the man to increase his pace by approximately 15% to maintain the 12-foot distance. He paused for 2.3 seconds when the man paused to allow a woman pushing a stroller to cross his path. The woman with the stroller did not know she had just walked between a predator and his target. She was buying tomatoes for her son's lunch. The world is full of people buying tomatoes who do not know what is happening 2 feet from their shopping bags. Bruce Lee reached the end of the row. He did not turn left to follow the man. He walked straight, crossed the 3-meter gap between the 2 rows at the end of the market, and entered the man's row from the opposite direction. He was now walking toward the man. The geometry had changed. Sophia was ahead of the man, walking south. The man was behind Sophia, walking south. Bruce Lee was now approaching from the south, walking north, directly into the man's path. The man did not see him. The man saw Sophia turning left at a stall selling dried pasta in cellophane bags. The man followed. He turned left. His 12-foot distance shrank to 10 as the turning radius pulled them closer. He adjusted back to 12 within 3 steps. His feet were performing the adjustment automatically, without conscious input, the way a thermostat adjusts temperature without being told, maintaining the set point, holding the distance, keeping the geometry stable until the moment the geometry was meant to collapse. Bruce Lee closed the distance from the front, 20 feet. The crowd moved around him the way water moves around a stone in a stream, parting without conscious effort, because a person walking with complete certainty through a dense crowd generates a field of spatial authority that other bodies instinctively defer to. 15 feet. Bruce could see the man's face now for the first time, approximately 35 to 40 years old, unshaven, 3 days of stubble, approximately 2 millimeters, tan jacket, white shirt beneath, top button open, a small gold chain at the neck. The face was unremarkable. The face could belong to 1,000 men in this market. The face was not the data. The feet were the data, and the feet were still pointing at the back of Sophia Loren's legs. 10 feet. Bruce moved the blood orange from his left hand to his right hand. Then he moved it back to his left hand. This was not indecision. This was a test. The right hand needed to be empty. The transfer confirmed it was empty. The left hand held the orange. The right hand held nothing. The right hand held everything. 6 feet. Bruce Lee stopped. He stopped directly in the man's path, in the center of the row, between a stall selling cured meats on the left and a stall selling dried herbs on the right. He stood with his weight evenly distributed, arms at his sides, right hand open, left hand holding a blood orange, face neutral. He did not tense. He did not set his jaw. He did not widen his stance. He stood the way he always stood, as if gravity had placed him there and he had found no reason to argue with gravity. The man almost walked into him. His eyes, which had been locked on Sophia's back, registered a shape in his path approximately 1.2 seconds before collision. He stopped. His feet adjusted. His weight shifted backward, from the balls of his feet to his heels, the first time his weight had been on his heels in 14 minutes. A weight shift to the heels is a retreat response. The man's body had registered a threat before his mind could identify the threat. The body is faster than the mind. Bruce Lee had built his entire life around that principle. The man looked at Bruce. He saw a man who was 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds, wearing a dark blue shirt with the sleeves rolled to mid-forearm, holding a blood orange. The man's conscious assessment took approximately 0.8 seconds. Small, not threatening, a tourist, an obstacle. The man prepared to step around Bruce and continue following Sophia. Bruce Lee took 1 step forward, 1 step, approximately 14 inches. The distance between them was now 6 inches. 6 inches is inside every social boundary the human brain maintains between itself and a stranger. 18 inches is personal space. 4 feet is social space. 6 inches is not personal space or social space. 6 inches is the distance between 2 people who are about to kiss or 2 people who are about to fight. The human brain has no third category for 6 inches. It must choose one. The man's brain chose fight. His pupils dilated from approximately 4 millimeters to approximately 7 millimeters in less than 1 second. His heart rate spiked from an estimated 78 beats per minute to over 100. His breathing shifted from nasal to oral. His shoulders rose by 1/4 inch as the trapezius engaged involuntarily. His hands moved 2 inches forward from his sides. Bruce Lee's pupils did not change. His heart rate did not change. His breathing did not change. His shoulders did not change. His hands did not change. He stood at 6 inches from the man's face with the physiological profile of a man who was buying fruit and the eyes of a man who had already decided what would happen next and was waiting for the other person to arrive at the same conclusion. He spoke. 3 sentences, conversational volume, 70 decibels. The words were in English. The man understood English. Bruce Lee knew the man understood English because when he began speaking, the man's eyes tracked left toward the left ear, which is the neurological indicator that the listener is processing language in the left hemisphere, which is the hemisphere that processes a speaker's native or fluent secondary language. If the man had not understood English, his eyes would have tracked right toward the right hemisphere, which processes unfamiliar sound patterns. The man understood every word. She turns left at the next stall. The man blinked. The sentence was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was a prediction. It told the man that Bruce Lee knew the woman's path before the woman knew her own path, which meant Bruce Lee had been watching the woman, which meant Bruce Lee had been watching the man watching the woman, which meant the man's invisibility, the 14 minutes of careful distance and stride matching and foot pointing that he believed made him undetectable, had been detected. The man was not invisible. The man had never been invisible. The man had been observed with a precision that exceeded his own. If you turn left, I will be behind you. The man's breathing stopped, an involuntary apneic pause lasting approximately 0.8 seconds. The sentence was a promise, not a threat. A promise. Threats describe what might happen. Promises describe what will happen. The difference is certainty. Bruce Lee's voice contained certainty the way his body contained stillness, completely, without leak, without performance, without the faintest tremor that would allow the man's brain to categorize the sentence as bluster. If you turn right, you will be behind yourself. The sentence was a paradox. It made no logical sense. That was the point. A paradox requires the listener's brain to pause and attempt to process a statement that has no resolution. And during that pause, which lasts approximately 1 to 2 seconds, the listener cannot simultaneously process the paradox and make a physical decision. The paradox created a cognitive gap. In that gap, the man's nervous system, which had been in a state of fight readiness since Bruce Lee closed to 6 inches, defaulted to the only option that did not require a decision: retreat. The man turned right. He walked away. His stride was different now. The stride that had mirrored Sophia Loren's rhythm for 14 minutes was gone. His feet were uneven. His pace was erratic. He bumped into a woman carrying a bag of lemons. He did not apologize. He walked to the edge of the piazza and disappeared around the corner of a building on Via Die Bollari. His brown shoes made a sound on the cobblestone that they had not made for 14 minutes. The sound of a man who is no longer tracking. The sound of a man who has been tracked. The brown shoes turned right. Bruce Lee did not watch them leave. He did not need to. The sound told him everything. The rubber soles that had been silent for 14 minutes suddenly made noise again. The heel struck first, then the ball, then the toe pushed off with a scraping drag mark on each step. That was the walk of a man who was no longer hunting. That was the walk of a man who was being hunted inside his own skull, replaying 3 sentences spoken by a stranger who stood 6 inches from his face and never blinked. Bruce returned to the fruit stall. The vendor, a man named Enzo, 63 years old, 5 feet 6 inches, approximately 170 pounds, with hands that had been selecting produce since 1925, stood behind a wooden table that measured 6 feet by 3 feet. The table held 11 rows of oranges, 9 rows of lemons, and 4 rows of blood oranges arranged in pyramids. Each pyramid contained between 12 and 18 pieces of fruit. The total weight of produce on the table was approximately 240 pounds. Enzo had watched the entire exchange between Bruce and the man in brown shoes. He had not moved. He had not spoken. His hands, which had been arranging a lemon at the moment Bruce stepped into the man's path, remained frozen around that lemon for the entire duration of the confrontation, which lasted 11 seconds. Bruce picked up an orange. He pressed his thumb into the skin with approximately 4 pounds of pressure, enough to test the moisture content without breaking the rind. The orange was a Tarocco variety, grown in Sicily, shipped to Rome by rail, approximately 7 days from the tree. Its diameter was 3¼ inches. Its weight was 6 ounces. Its skin was smooth with a faint blush of red near the navel. Bruce placed it in a brown paper bag. He selected 3 more oranges using the same method. Each selection took approximately 4 seconds. Thumb pressure, skin resistance, weight assessment, color evaluation, 4 oranges in 16 seconds. He placed 12 lire on the table. Enzo picked up the coins without speaking. His eyes followed Bruce as he walked away, carrying the bag in his left hand, which hung naturally at his side with the elbow bent at approximately 15 degrees. His right hand remained empty, fingers slightly curled, thumb resting against the index finger at the first knuckle. That was not a relaxed hand. That was a hand that could close, rotate and strike in less than 1/10 of a second. But to anyone watching from a distance of more than 6 feet, it looked like nothing more than a man carrying oranges through a market on a Tuesday morning in Rome. Sophia Loren was 38 years old. She stood 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed approximately 140 pounds. Her measurements were 38-24-38. She wore a cream linen blouse with the top 2 buttons open, a brown leather belt cinched at the waist, a dark green skirt that ended 2 inches below the knee, and flat leather sandals with a 1/2-inch sole. The sandals were handmade by a cobbler on Via Condotti named Giancarlo, who had been making shoes for Italian actresses since 1954. Each sandal weighed 4 ounces. They made almost no sound on the cobblestone. Almost. Bruce had heard them. The leather sole produced a soft contact sound at approximately 22 decibels, which was 12 decibels below normal conversational volume and 8 decibels below the ambient market noise. But the rhythm was distinct. A woman walking at a comfortable pace with a stride of 26 inches produces a tempo that has a frequency. Sophia Loren's frequency was approximately 68 steps per minute, which translated to a walking speed of roughly 2.9 miles per hour. Bruce had catalogued this information in the first 40 seconds of observation. He had not been watching Sophia, he had been watching the man who was watching Sophia. But to watch a predator accurately, you must first understand the prey's movement, because the predator's movement is always a mirror of what it follows. The man in brown shoes was gone. Bruce confirmed this by scanning the crowd in 4 quadrant segments, each taking approximately 1.5 seconds, covering a full 360-degree radius around his position, 6 seconds total. The man was not in the market. He was not in the alley to the east. He was not visible through the archway to the south. He was gone. But gone did not mean finished. Gone meant relocated. And relocated was more dangerous than present, because a present threat can be measured with precision, but an absent threat must be predicted with instinct. Bruce trusted instinct more than measurement. Measurement tells you what is happening. Instinct tells you what is about to happen. Bruce adjusted his path. He moved from the opposite side of the market corridor to the same side as Sophia, reducing his lateral distance from 14 feet to 7 feet. He was now close enough to intervene in less than 1 second if the man reappeared from any direction within a 30-foot radius. His heart rate, which had been 54 beats per minute at the fruit stall, rose to 58 beats per minute. His breathing remained at 4 breaths per minute. He shifted the bag of oranges from his left hand to his right hand, freeing his left hand, which was his lead hand in the modified Wing Chun guard he had adapted into Jeet Kune Do. His left hand could travel from rest to full extension, a distance of approximately 26 inches, in 0.06 of a second. 7 minutes passed. Bruce visited 3 stalls during those 7 minutes. A bread stall, where he purchased a small ciabatta for 40 lire. A cheese stall, where he examined a wheel of pecorino romano but did not buy. A spice stall, where he smelled a jar of Calabrian chili flakes but did not touch. At each stall he spent between 60 and 90 seconds, which matched the natural browsing rhythm of the surrounding crowd and ensured he did not appear stationary. A stationary figure in a moving crowd attracts attention in approximately 45 seconds. A moving figure that matches the crowd's pace and rhythm attracts attention never. At 10:31 a.m., 17 minutes after the man in brown shoes had turned right and disappeared through the southern archway, Bruce detected a change in the market. The change was not visual, it was auditory. A gap appeared in the ambient sound. The gap lasted approximately 1.5 seconds and originated from the northeast corner of the market, near the archway that opened onto Via del Portico d'Ottavia. A gap in ambient sound means one of two things. Either a loud noise has suddenly stopped, or a large number of people have simultaneously reduced their volume. The second option occurs when something unusual enters a familiar space. A second man. This man was taller than the first, approximately 5 feet 11 inches, 180 pounds, wearing a blue linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows and grey trousers with a sharp crease. His shoes were black leather, polished, with a hard sole that produced a distinct strike on cobblestone at approximately 45 decibels. His stride was 30 inches. His pace was approximately 4 miles per hour, significantly faster than the crowd's average of 2.5 miles per hour. He was not browsing, he was not shopping, he was navigating. And he was navigating with clear directional intent toward the section of the market where Sophia Loren was now examining a second piece of emerald silk fabric. Bruce set the bag of oranges and bread on the corner of a stool table. Both hands were now free. He entered what he called zero stance. No load, no chamber, no wind-up, no preparatory motion of any kind, just potential energy stored in the precise arrangement of muscle, bone, tendon, and intention, ready to convert to kinetic energy in any direction within 1/10 of a second. The man in the blue shirt stopped at a stall 8 feet behind Sophia. He did not look at the produce on the table in front of him. He looked at Sophia's back. His eyes moved from her shoulders to her waist to her hips to her legs. The scan took approximately 3 seconds. Then his eyes returned to her shoulders and repeated the identical scan. This was not admiration. Admiration glances and shifts focus. Admiration includes the face. This man had not once looked at Sophia's face. He had looked at her body as a series of mechanical segments. That was assessment. That was the gaze of a man calculating weight, resistance, and how quickly a body could or could not move. Bruce covered the 7 feet between them in 3 steps, each step 28 inches, each foot landing on the ball with approximately 2 decibels of contact sound. He positioned himself directly between the man in the blue shirt and Sophia, facing the man, with his back to Sophia at a distance of 4 feet from her and 3 feet from the man. The man looked at Bruce. His pupils were constricted despite the diffused morning light, which indicated sympathetic nervous system activation. His jaw was set. His weight was forward on his front foot. His right hand was inside his trouser pocket. Bruce spoke in Italian. His Italian was not fluent. He had learned approximately 300 words during 6 days in Rome. He said 5 words. Translated, they were, "She is not for you." The man's right hand shifted inside his pocket. The fabric moved, suggesting an object approximately 5 inches long and weighing between 4 and 6 ounces. Bruce watched the hand and calculated extraction time from pocket to deployment at approximately 1.2 seconds. His own response time from zero stance to full interception was 1/10 of a second. The margin was 1.1 seconds. That was not a margin. That was an eternity in which Bruce could execute 11 separate techniques. He would need one. The man removed his hand from his pocket. It was empty. He turned and walked toward the northeast archway at 4.5 miles per hour, shoulders raised approximately half an inch higher than they had been on approach, indicating elevated trapezius tension and unresolved adrenaline. Bruce remained in position for 11 seconds. At the 7th second, Sophia turned around. She saw a man in a black cotton shirt standing 3 feet away, facing away from her, holding nothing. She said in Italian, "Mi scusi, I did not see you there." Bruce turned to face her. Her tortoiseshell sunglasses were large enough to cover her eyebrows, but not large enough to conceal the tension in her orbicularis oculi muscle, which produced fine lines at the outer corners of her eyes. That tension was not caused by sunlight. It was caused by something she had felt but could not identify or name, a presence behind her that had weight and density and was now absent. Bruce said in English, "The silk is from Suzhou." Sophia paused. She looked at the fabric in her hand. She looked at the man in front of her. She said, "You know silk?" Bruce said, "I know where things come from." Sophia studied him for 4 seconds, her head tilted at 7 degrees, which was less than her habitual 11, meaning this was not performance. This was genuine curiosity. She said, "You are not Italian." "No, what are you doing in this market?" "Buying oranges." He picked up his bag from the stool table where it had remained untouched for 90 seconds. He held it in his right hand. His left hand returned to its natural resting position. He nodded once, a movement of approximately 2 inches taking less than half a second, and walked toward the western exit. Sophia watched him leave for 9 seconds. She did not know why she watched for exactly 9 seconds. So she did not know that the man who had told her about Suzhou silk had positioned himself between her and a predator who scanned her body in 3-second intervals. She did not know that 5 words spoken in imperfect Italian had removed a threat she never saw. She did not know the bag of oranges had been set down so both hands could be free, and picked up again so both hands could appear full and harmless. She knew one thing: the air behind her felt different now, lighter, as though something heavy had been standing there and had quietly left. She bought the silk. That evening she wore it as a scarf to a dinner in Trastevere. Carlo Ponti told her the colour suited her beautifully. She said, "A man in the market said it was from Suzhou." Carlo asked, "What man?" Sophia said, "I do not know his name. He was buying oranges." Bruce ate 3 of the 4 oranges that night at his pension on Via Giulia, room 12, 2nd floor, 4,000 lire per night. He peeled each orange in a single continuous strip, using 3 pounds of consistent thumb pressure and a rotation speed of 1 inch per second. Each peel took between 40 and 50 seconds. The 4th orange he placed on the windowsill. It sat untouched for 3 days until the morning he checked out. The cleaning woman found it and ate it on her break. She told her daughter that evening it was the sweetest orange she had ever tasted in her life. Sophia Loren and Bruce Lee never met again. She never learned his name. He never recorded the encounter in his notebooks, which held thousands of entries on technique, philosophy, and the mechanics of human movement. The Rome market did not appear on any page. The only evidence was a receipt from Enzo's fruit stall, folded once, tucked into the back pocket of Bruce's black cotton trousers, discovered by Linda Lee Cadwell in a drawer in their Bel Air home after July 20th, 1973. The receipt said, 4 oranges, 12 lire. It did not say, 1 woman protected, 2 men turned away, 0 punches thrown. That was always Bruce Lee's preferred arithmetic. The fights that never happened were the ones he won most completely. The strikes that were never delivered were the most effective techniques he ever executed. The interventions that left no evidence except a slight change in the weight of the air, and a woman buying silk who felt, for reasons she could never quite explain, that the market had become a safer and gentler place than it had been 14 minutes before she noticed the man buying oranges.